In my last video, I was sharing all about crayons and petroleum jelly. Whether or not it was fun to color with them, whether or not it was even like a worthwhile thing to explore, which turns out I think it kind of is. It was kind of super fun. So if you're interested in learning about the basics of all of that procedure, go back and look at that video first, because this is going to be assuming, this particular video is going to be assuming you've already watched that, and I'm not going to re-explain anything. But this is all about creating color blends, this video, creating color blends with crayons and petroleum jelly. So let's get started. I'm gonna smoosh some of my props here to the side. Okay, we've got just regular petroleum jelly, and I'm using Crayola crayons today because they're my favorite brand. Kind of a loyal Crayola person because they do make some really fun art tools for young folks that, you know, grown-ups still get a great deal of pleasure using. All right, we've got a couple color blends we're going to make. I'm going to set some to the side first. So as always, I want to show what things look like without the blender or the implement or the additional ingredient, an additive, whatever you want to call it that we're adding, so that you can see the comparison. So let's do a color blend. Color blends take some time. So I'm going to continue to talk like a regular person and not like a chipmunk, but I am going to be speeding up the video because in any art practice, creating color blends is kind of a flow of process. You go back and forth and you're judging whether or not you're done. It is not a simple, "Ooh, I did it." So I don't want to make you watch me do color blends as we go through this. So bear with me. Here comes a little bit of a high-speed video, but I will maintain my voice at the regular pitch. When I create color blends, I start with firm pressure and then fade into feather light pressure because I think it creates the smoothest color transition. So that's a really quick blend of, I didn't see what colors these were, red, orange, and dandelion. From my last video, I used these. I kind of fell in love with these two colors. Really quick color blend between the two. You'll notice there's going to be some paper showing through, even though I did a lot of hard pressure, which my apologies again. We have shakeage with that on my camera. There's nothing I can do about that. So now that we see what it looks like without petroleum jelly, let's give it a try with petroleum jelly. And I'm going to be doing the dipping first method. So I am coloring with them with Vaseline on their tips. I use the same technique of beginning with firm pressure and then fading to feather light pressure to blend these two colors. And I thought Vaseline would speed the blend up, but it actually slowed the color blending down. So that's with dipping into the petroleum jelly. Let's take a closer look at the two different styles. I'm going to zoom you in, so bear with me. Here is the dipping method, and while it's interesting, I do think it's interesting, I'm not going to suggest it isn't, and it's kind of fun going back and forth, although it was kind of frustrating because as this crayon is getting more used and depressed, the jelly was climbing up the crayon a lot more quickly than with the sharper, and so I found it a little challenging to keep the jelly where I wanted it, softening the pigment and not the pigment, softening the wax to get the pigment to work a little bit better. Get that cleared off here. But it's it doesn't really blend like this does, a little more of a blend, and I can definitely control what's going on over here a little bit. And you can see it's turned a little orange, as you would expect, even on a blend that I did that quickly. But here there's like a pixelization almost. Can you see? I think you can see that on the camera of the red orange developing into the dandelion. It's still an interesting look. It's not bad. And I've got these rivulets again of the petroleum jelly, which is not my favorite thing. I would definitely want to unfix. Well, first of all, I want to see what happens here. That's so weird. So like the yellow is kind of integrating with the paper like you would expect, but the red is kind of specky. That's weird. All right, and that's what I really want to do. I want to get those rivulets out of the way. Oops. And see what I have left over when I use my finger. And oh, you can see, at least I can see there's some yellow on my finger. Interesting. So the red is really kind of mixing with the tooth of the paper and creating this kind of textured look. This is not my favorite thing, but you know, that's just a preference. It's not necessarily bad. All right, let's see. I'm going to try a different color combination because this yellow needs sharpening, and I don't want you to have to bear with me as I sharpen a crayon, because if you do any crayon coloring, then you know it's a bit of an undertaking to sharpen a crayon nicely. So I'm not gonna use these ones again. Let's go to maroon and tropical rainforest. Okay, so this is what I think I'm gonna like the best, but we'll see. So I'm gonna put just a smooth line of petroleum jelly down with a clean cotton swab, and then I'm going to create my color blend. So let's see if this is gonna look as cool as I anticipate it will. When it comes to using petroleum jelly with crayons, my favorite technique by far is laying the petroleum jelly down first and then coloring directly on top of it. All right, let's look closer at this monstrosity. I kind of got carried away there and it got really thick with color. This color blend I like the better, or like better than this one. It's intense and you can smush it. Let's see how it's gonna react. It's not quite as smushy. I'm pushing pretty hard and I'm getting a little bit of color smear on the ends. I think I overstepped the petroleum jelly on both sides because after a while it got to be a little difficult for me to see where I laid it down. But this is interesting, creating this purple in the center, which, I don't know, I'm looking at that, I'm like, ooh, that'd be a really creepy looking monster or something like that if I was coloring in one of my colorable cards. So I like it. It's really intense. It covers up the paper and nicely, and the pigment, not the pigment, the crayon tips aren't covered. That's just crayon. That's not jelly. It doesn't need the same level of cleaning that the other style did, and it was a lot thicker. So the last one I want to show y'all, because there's always more than one way to brew coffee, as I like to say, because I hate talking about skinning cats. That whole, saying there's more than one way to skin a cat. I'm like, why are you skinning cats? I mean, I know why. I know why. They used to make music strings out of them. But let's not skin cats. Let's brew coffee. So that was a random tangent. Sorry about that. But there's more than one way to brew coffee. There's more than one way to use a coloring technique. And let's try one more at the bottom. Let's do a crayon blend first and then apply petroleum jelly on top. And in fact, while I'm thinking about that, I didn't think this all the way through, folks. We could do it over here. Oh, but then we can't compare them. So, all right. That was me rethinking my idea on camera. You're welcome for that tangent into my brain. Let's start with two new colors. As you can tell, I really like the vibrant ones for when I am working on film. Did we already do a blue? We didn't. Really, that's kind of a blue, but let's see. How about denim and what's this one called? Purple Mountains Majesty. That's a mouthful. All right, let's make sure that they can be seen on camera. Oh, that's bright. That's good enough. All right, bear with me while I make a color blend. The blending between these two colors goes a lot more smoothly and quickly, and it has nothing to do with petroleum jelly and everything to do about color theory, and I'm going to explain why in a moment. Okay, so we've got our color blend, and we're going to apply the petroleum jelly on the top with a clean cotton swab. And I should just probably note while I was sitting there coloring just this moment, I didn't really mention that these color blends that we've done thus far, the dandelion and the red-orange, the maroon and the, what did they call that? Wasn't just a green color. Tropical rainforest. These color blends are, these are not going to be as smooth the transitions or as gentle in process as like this one will be. And I don't know if you know, so I wanted to share that with you, that these are not colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. They're actually kind of far away from each other. These ones especially, these are pretty much complementary colors, so they're exactly across from each other on the color wheel. So pulling them towards each other, even without something to help, is going to create, it's a little more challenging to create a smooth color blend. It's an interesting color blend. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a smooth transition because there are quite a few colors in between this shade of green and this shade of I would call this magenta, almost purple. Same with this. There's many different steps between this red orange and this dandelion that looks very close to a cadmium yellow, whereas between this denim blue and this Purple Mountain's Majesty, which if you were using traditional color terms, I would say this is probably heading towards a lavender spectrum. These are really close to each other on a color wheel, so we're gonna get a shade in here that makes a lot more sense. There's fewer steps between these. So if you were wondering about, well, wait, it's not the petroleum jelly that's making this one, well, eventually we'll see what happens, but the petroleum jelly doesn't help these two blend better together or more logically. It's that I was choosing colors that were really far away from each other just so we could have a really dramatic proof of how this is working or not working. And I'm gonna get my clean cotton swab. I'm gonna get a decent amount of petroleum jelly. It's hard to get clean jelly anymore because I got so much color pigment in here. And let's see what happens if we just apply it over the top. My gut, based on our last video, says this is gonna wash this out. But these are really strong colors, so we'll see. Let's see, I gotta get an angle. Excuse me while you see a little less cool stuff because this is so far at the bottom of my, oop, there goes, oh, wow. Man, that looks cool. Okay, so that's interesting right there to me. I would definitely see pushing that into something. I don't know about a coloring page, but like if I was making a card or something and I wanted to use this on a background, I might color a whole bunch of, like, just take this denim, color the heck out of a space, and then dip petroleum jelly onto a swab and pick up color and then do splotchy things. Okay, I got totally sidetracked by that awesome blue. Let's try that again on this side. Let's go back and forth. I haven't done the purple yet. And it's doing what I expect, which is, yep, it's desaturating it, especially the more I scrub it and I get that petroleum jelly mixed into the pigment that I laid down. And I laid it down pretty firmly. The more it's basically like, I hate to use the word eating its way through, but that's kind of what's happening, and spreading it into the paper and moving it around on the blank paper. This is becoming almost entirely blue. That's crazy. The purple really, this is kind of clean. Okay, that's clean. Let me see what the purple gets. Weird. Okay, so the purple is almost getting washed all the way out. Because remember, this is what the purple looks like over here. Super cool. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, that'd be so fun. Like if you were doing some card making and you wanted a nice soft background, and then you could like layer stuff on top of it. If I push it hard, let's see. Sweet. Okay, now I'm totally, if you don't mind going down this tangent with me, I'm totally gonna get into this really dark blue and see what happens. Ooh, so I'm really picking it up. Wow. Okay, so that's an interesting application for crayons and petroleum jelly, is using this like a watercolor palette, essentially dipping it in, pulling up pigment. That's cool. Now, granted, this denim blue is a really saturated color. Oh, I am getting petroleum jelly everywhere. Okay, I'm gonna wipe my hands off for a bit. All right, so cool. So color blends with crayons without petroleum jelly, which is crayon. When you color the crayon colored blend using a dipped into, so the dipping method, applying that petroleum jelly first to the crayon. This one's my favorite. So I put the petroleum jelly down the first and then colored over the top. That one is my preferred. If I was to be doing this in a coloring book, or not a coloring book, because we talked about in the other video, I'm not that excited about this much petroleum jelly inside of a book. Because even though we just did this, it's got some oil stains going on. It'll be wet for quite a while, especially down here where I had to apply the petroleum jelly first. And there wasn't that waxy barrier. Because here I applied the crayon and that created a waxy barrier between it and the paper. And then I put the petroleum jelly on, so you'll see there's a slight... This stain's getting, this is darker because I use darker colors, but this stain's getting bigger and bigger as I'm talking here. And then this is, I did this back in August 29th, so we could see how long it takes. And this you can feel this. This is the without petroleum jelly. This is the dip method, which was a little brighter with those two colors, but they were also much more saturated colors than the two I chose on this one. This is with it laid down first, and these are all dry now. This one's really dry, so this was I color blended, and then I went over it with petroleum jelly, just like this. That's how it's so faded. This is really dry. This will eventually dry, but it's left a lot of oil stains, which, you know, after it's dry is not that big a deal, but I would rather be applying this technique to standalone experiences of coloring rather than compendiums. And I think of coloring books as compendiums. So I hope you found this interesting, both the previous video, which was all about colored, I always want to say colored pencils, crayons and petroleum jelly, and then how you can make some cool color blends with petroleum jelly. There we go, it's in frame. Always the hardest part, getting things in frame, and crayons. Yeah, this is exciting. This would be super fun, especially if you're working on an art project with someone, like having an art date or something, and you just color the heck, like how hard can you color, and then just see what kind of weird wispy. Yeah, this is starting to dry. So the thinner it is, the drier it, the more dry. Let me slow down here. The thinner the layer of petroleum jelly, the quicker it dries. So yeah. Petroleum jelly and crayons. It's actually sort of fun. Thanks for watching.